Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you wherever you are on the planet. Thank you for joining me here today for the third installment of Demystifying Cyber Security. I'm taking cybersecurity topics that are of interest to small business owners and explaining things to them simply. My name is Liam Lynch. My business is L2 Cybersecurity Solutions. We have the motto of Cyber Security Simplified, which just goes to be our maxim, which is all about explaining things in simple terms without using jargon or any technical mumbo jumbo, just keeping things as simple as possible. October is Cyber Security Month, when we try to bring focus on the whole topic of cybersecurity. But really, every month should be Cyber Security Month because the criminals don't operate just in October. They operate year round. So, but this month's Cybersecurity Month is, the theme of it is think before you click. And what they mean by that is they want you to, pause before you, rush into clicking on a link or opening an attachment that might compromise you in some fashion. Because the cyber criminals are really good at, putting you under pressure, saying you have to address this now, in the next 20 minutes or next day you have to address this. And they're pressuring you into pressing that link. So pause for a few seconds, think, is this legitimate? So it's a great theme this month. So I'm running these sessions every Tuesday in October. And I said this is the third one, so the final one will be next Tuesday. So if you like what you see here today, please subscribe there to my YouTube channel and you'll get notified when I put up these videos or go live. Or if you follow me on any social media, you'll get posts from me and you'll get to see when I put stuff out. I also do on Fridays. I put out what I call the Weekend Wisdom, which is a short 2-minute video on some cybersecurity topic, and that's where these demystifying cybersecurity subjects came from. Where it was that the 2-minute video, really I can't get into much detail on a particular topic. So people were asking me for, could I explain more detail about some of the items? So that's where this whole series sprung out from. So today we're going to talk about supply chain risk. Now, that's maybe a strange term for everybody. So I'm going to talk about, what is a supply chain risk? What forms it might take. And also, how do you protect yourself from this? Now, I'm actually going to roll the forms that it can take and the measures you can take to protect yourself from them into a storytelling scenario where I'll relate some case studies of examples of supply chain attacks from the past. So, what is a supply chain risk? As businesses and systems have become much more increasingly complicated, there's a lot more moving parts and a lot more things required to produce goods and services. So there's a greater dependence on pieces of services from companies or parts from other people. So they all form the supply chain that feeds into a company's creation, the manufacturing process, and what that ends up becoming is the end product. So the supply chain risk is, if somebody gets in somewhere in the middle of the supply chain, somebody with nefarious intentions, a criminal, they can get in there and they can, poison the supply chain to, cause some damage to the product. Now, so that's basically what a supply chain risk is. So, by the way, just to remind everybody, if you want to have any questions or comments on this at any stage, please feel free to put them into the chat box there, and I'll address them when I get to the end. So, getting on to the meat of this, and we'll try and keep this as simple as straightforward as possible. The various examples, case studies of previous supply chain risks. Now, going back many years, around the time that Edward Snowden revealed that the NSA were up to no good, intercepting people's calls and emails and things like that. There were rumours and even some pictures taken of an NSA operation where they intercepted the shipment of some servers and networking switches that were going from manufacturers to a company that they were interested in listening into. And the pictures revealed that the NSA guys were opening up the packages with the servers and the network gear in, and they implanted some technology to do some spying, apparently. And then they closed them back up and sealed the boxes back up, and the shipment continued on its way. So to whomever received those servers or networking gear, they ended up with compromised devices. It's probably still speculation. They probably did it. I don't know. I can't really be sure to say for definite or not. But there's also been rumors down through the years that certain Chinese manufactured networking equipment has been known to phone home to Beijing every night. Again, there's been no real proof shown that this has happened, but it's always a possibility. The hardware that is being used in everyday computing systems is prone to being compromised in some way. Now, it's really difficult to protect yourself against such thing. If you're in the kind of nation state business, intelligence services, you probably have the technology there to be able to check these things out. But small businesses, first of all, it's a big ask to be able to go in and compromise somebody's hardware. So if you're a small company, there's probably no, you're not going to be a victim to that really, unless you have a really big customer like a state agency or something like that. So, but it's very hard to detect that kind of thing. You need specialist electrical engineers and electronic engineers. Now, switching from hardware to kind of software, back in June 2017, a piece of software that is used by Ukrainian companies for filing tax returns and annual accounts, the package called MEDoc. This got compromised by somebody implanting a ransomware worm into the software. Now, it's probably most likely going to be Russia that was doing this, because the tensions between Russia and Ukraine are quite high, and they always have been for the last several years. But what happened was, this was the famous Petra ransomware worm, which basically spread to every company in Ukraine that had this software. It scrambled all the files and all the computers within each of those offices. A lot of those offices were of international organizations. So this ransomware, NotPetya, spread all across the globe. And it brought down the largest shipping and logistics company on the planet, a company called Maersk. And they were completely hobbled for weeks afterwards. The ports were shut down. There was no shipping going on. They had no tracking of where goods were in transit. So it was incredibly disruptive to Maersk. It cost them hundreds of millions of dollars to recover from this. They weren't the only international organization. DHL and Merck and some other various international organizations that had offices in Ukraine, they got compromised too. So that was somebody getting into the software and implanting this ransomware into the software. So they got into the supply chain of that software, and that's how it got spread out around the world. So in that situation, where a company like Maersk, where they have a huge international operation, how did one office in Ukraine, how did that bring down the entire global network of Maersk? Well, their network was basically kind of wide open. It was what we call flat, so that any office can see any other office. And that's, makes things nice and easy for you to be able to communicate between the various offices. But it also gives you the risk that if anything bad gets into one office, it can spread widely. So for kind of situation like that, it would be better to segment your network. And what I mean by that is you kind of separate things off, put firewalls in place to protect, say Europe from US, from Asia, or even down to the country level, or even down to an office level. If you have a large number of offices, segment each office from each other so they don't all bring each other down. So that's how you could have prevented the ultimate destruction of that caused that happened with the Petra and somebody getting in on your software supply. One of the more famous case studies of a supply chain compromise was back in 2013, in late 2013, when Target, the large US retail company, they were found out that after it was 18 days, they found out that they were having credit cards stolen of all the customers who were using their point of sales terminals in their stores all across the US. Like, they lost over 40 million credit cards in this hack. And how this came to be was that earlier in the summer or early autumn, a heating, ventilation, air conditioning maintenance company called Fazio Mechanical. They were a small New Jersey-based heating ventilation company that had responsibility for doing some maintenance on Target stores' air conditioning systems. And as being a supplier of Target, they were given access to the work order processing and billing system of Target, so that they could get their work orders and then put in their bills to get paid. What the bad guys did was they had compromised Fazio Mechanical. They got the credentials that the Fazio Mechanical employees were using to get into this work order processing system. They logged in themselves into the system and then found their way to get onto this is an external system now facing all the suppliers for Target. But they were able to jump from that system and get onto the Target's internal network. And from there, they were able to spread all across the Target US network. And they were able to infect all of the point-of-sale terminals with malicious software, which stole people's credit cards when they were using it. Now, they were running this scam just after Black Friday and in the lead up to Christmas. So it was, it's a really critical time of year, and there was a lot of business going on. So that's how they were able to get 40 million credit cards. It was incredible, but it was all because the external system for work order processing and billing was somehow connected to the internal network. And also then that the internal network was, again, like Maersk, it was completely flat. So the bad guys were able to spread themselves all across the network. So again, just like the previous example, segmentation would be a great help there. Firewalling external systems like the billing system and work order processing system to the internal systems, but also then taking things like the point of sale terminals, the tills, that sort of technology, and putting them off onto separate networks so that if somebody breaks in, they can't get to the point of sale terminals. Keep them separate. And the final story then today is British Airways. Back in 2018, in the summer of 2018, so just after the GDPR had come into effect, they were discovered to have had a compromise on their website, which enabled the bad guys to steal a load of credit cards. There was some 380,000 credit cards were stolen from people who used the British Airways website. And that has since gone through some investigations by the Information Commissioner's Office in the UK. They issued an intention to fine of, I think it was one of the biggest figures, was 180,000, 185 million, wasn't it? I can't remember. But it was a big number. It was millions. And this is an intention to fine. And that was like 1.5% of their global annual turnover from the previous year. So that was the GDPR fine for them. But it was only an intention to fine. And they fought and fought and fought. And I'm not sure, but I think they may have come to an arrangement now to pay a much lesser fine now. But what happened was the bad guys had got into their website. And a website is made up of all sorts of different components. and they had compromised the payment page where the credit card details were being processed, and they were able to use this. It's a thing called Magecart, is the compromise, what it's known as, and it targets Magento, the plugin which does payment processing. And the bad guys, anyway, they sat there, they compromised the website in the background, and all the credit card details that were used for a period of weeks got taken away by the bad guys in the compromise. So how do we protect our websites? Because don't forget, our websites are out there in the public domain. They're available 24/7. So the criminals are always pinging off them. They're trying to break into them. They're trying to compromise them. Like last night I got on one of my websites, I had a password reset for my user ID was sent through. So these guys are always trying to take down people's websites. But what you need to do is the website, in this case, to avoid things like Magecart getting in, or somebody being able to inject something into your website in the background, you need to put in place things like, well, first of all, you need to make sure all of your plugins keep getting regular updates. Then there's a thing called content security policy, which is a thing around protecting the content on your website. And then there's sub-resource integrity checking, which is just make sure if anything that is down, buried in your website, if that changes unexpectedly, it will get flagged. So if anybody did sneak in, implant some malicious code in your website, these content security policy and sub-resource integrity will catch that and flag it up, and will hopefully keep your website safe from any such compromises. So we're coming up on 20 minutes there now. Those are the various stories. I don't see any questions in the chat there. Just to finish up and conclude today's session, it was nice and quick. I hope you now can see here the various types of places where if you're a small business, you might be have a big customer, a big client, could be a big corporate or a government agency. You might be potentially targeted by the criminals, the cyber criminals, because they want to get to the big corporate or get into the state agency. So you've got to make sure you keep things protected as much as possible, and apply good practices there. So, and I hope you understand a bit more now about why you might be potentially targeted, and what steps there are there to protect yourselves. So that should keep you safe. So please join me next week again for the final in the series, and this is the exciting one. This is going to be all about responding to incidents and data breaches. And this is kind of following on from the first in the series where we talked about ransomware. So I'm going to talk about how you need to be able to respond to any kind of a security incident or data breach in a calm, controlled fashion, and not lose the run yourself. So now these have been going out at 2 p.m. Irish Standard Time for the last few weeks, but because our clocks go back next Saturday, this will actually be at 2 p.m. GMT next Tuesday. So if you're interested in coming along, please do join me at 2 p.m. GMT next Tuesday. So thank you, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you again next week.